10th, and the White House facing massive backlash for their Trump-Putin Alaska summit, scheduled for Friday in 5 days. This meeting kicking off the start to a new foreign policy strategy, one that has the DC establishment up in arms, the media reporting Europe and the West are unhappy about this. But no, the country that's unhappy, in fact furious, is China. Beijing hitting America's defense supply chain again, cutting off rare earth minerals. And last night, the Chinese Air Force even swarming Taiwanese airspace. Russia warning this morning that certain countries, China, are making titanic efforts to prevent this peace deal from happening. There is just so much going on right now. We have a big show today. Let's get started.
We want to end this with a sovereign, independent, self-governing Ukraine and a situation where Putin cannot do this the third time without being crushed. This is really a dress rehearsal for Taiwan. And as to China, we had a good talk. I played golf with the president yesterday. Saturday was the 10-day deadline. China is very much on his mind.
President Trump has scheduled peace talks to take place in Alaska, the great state of Alaska, on Friday with President Putin of Russia after announcing that a Russia-Ukraine ceasefire deal is close. Details on this deal are still scarce, but we're hearing Putin has agreed to Trump's land swap outline if it includes Arctic passage and removing some or all of the energy sanctions that are currently imposed. Zelensky coming out publicly rejecting this, but privately, behind the scenes, he's already working on it, pressuring members of his cabinet, or his legislature rather, to pass a framework to make this legal, whether it's a constitutional amendment or a law or something. Trump's saying Zelensky's got his work cut out for him on this one. He's working hard on getting this done.
Now, President Zelensky has to get all of his everything he needs, because he's going to have to get ready to sign something, and I think he is working hard to get that done.
Will Zelensky have to give up territory, Mr. President?
Well, you're looking at territory that's been fought over for 3.5 years with, a lot of Russians have died, a lot of Ukrainians have died. So we're looking at that, but we're actually looking to get some back. And some swapping. It's complicated. It's actually nothing easy. It's very complicated, but we're going to get some back. We're going to get some switched. There'll be some swapping of territories to the betterment of both.
As of today, the land dispute involves 4 Ukrainian regions, what you see here in red: Luhansk, Donetsk, Zaporizhia, and Kherson, as well as the Black Sea Peninsula of Crimea. Now, which pieces are set to be swapped? We don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But from an American point of view, from a U.S. foreign policy point of view, this has almost zero to do with Ukraine, little to do with Russia, and everything to do with China. Keeping this war going helps nobody but China. China is the only country winning right now. The U.S. and Europe have wasted hundreds of billions of dollars in treasure to fight this war. Ukraine and Russia are both losing. They've lost hundreds of thousands of people combined. China, though, has spent nothing. They've lost nobody, and they're benefiting greatly by purchasing sanctioned Russian oil and gas. Putin's been selling China and India below market-priced energy to fund this war. China's making a killing on keeping this arrangement going unimpeded, which is why this morning, Putin's investment envoy, Kirill Dmitriev, warning a number of countries interested in continuing the conflict will be making titanic efforts, he says, to disrupt the planned meeting between Putin and Trump. So, look, when viewing the Ukraine-Russia war, do so with that China lens on. All of this has to do with China. The goal to better position the U.S. against the coming war with China. That's why we saw Trump spank Zelensky a few months ago to get that rare earth minerals deal signed. Also why the deal Trump just did with Armenia and Azerbaijan with this new trade corridor that they're saying cuts off the EU more than it does Russia. No, it cuts off China above all. Look, let's just quickly break this down. The Pentagon, they've gamed all this out. The Pentagon is a planning organization. All they do is plan over there. They have plans for everything. They run war game simulations constantly. They probe every possible scenario to see what needs to happen to win a war. In this case, win a war with China. And every time they do it, we lose, supposedly. From what I understand, the only way that changes is with Russia. This is like an open secret in DC. Why do you think Washington is so obsessed with Russia? Because they share a 2,600-mile-long border with China. If war were to break out between the US and China, who Russia sides with can decide the outcome. It's as simple as that. For years, the prevailing strategy has been to destabilize Russia, convince the world to sanction them, strangle their economy, in the hopes of Putin's government collapsing and a new Western-aligned government taking its place, all of which we know has failed miserably. The Trump administration's philosophy, though, a complete 180, which is why what we're seeing taking place on Friday has such huge implications. It's why the establishment is up in arms. Trump wants to open up relations with Russia, work with them, stop pushing them closer to China, instead pull them away from China, while at the same time breaking China's monopoly on rare earth.
We have more liquid gold under our feet than anybody else. Otherwise, nobody else could do this but us. We're in position to do it. Instead, we're going all electric, and we don't have that. Although we do have some, and it's usually controlled by the environmentalists. We're going to uncontrol it pretty quick. It's called rare earth. We have some great rare earth science areas, but we're not allowed to touch it. Because if we touch it, the world will come to an end, they say. If we dig a little bit like China does and like other countries, we have some great rare earth. You know what rare earth is to make different things, including chips and batteries and things. We have some incredible sites, but they're all taken totally off the market because some guy sitting there with very thick glasses looks at it and says, that's an environmental site. And now we can't develop trillions of dollars worth of value, so we're going to be unfreezing a lot of stuff that's been sitting there for millions of years.
Now, obviously, China's economy is massive, but they have a vulnerability, a big one. Energy. They import all of their oil and gas, but they do have one massive advantage. They own the vast majority of rare earth minerals. This is where the real war is happening. It's why Taiwan is so important for national security. All of this is playing out before our eyes. Ukraine and Russia was always part of the foreign policy strategy. These plans take decades to play out. Next is China invading Taiwan, which most analysts say will happen in 2027 or 2028. Even congressmen who sit on the Intel committee have let this time frame slip. We always hear about 2027. Something big is happening in 2027. Even Pete Hegseth said it's happening likely during this administration. Watch.
Clear any attempt by Communist China to conquer Taiwan by force would result in devastating consequences for the Indo-Pacific and the world. There's no reason to sugarcoat it. The threat China poses is real, and it could be imminent.
China exerts sweeping control over the world's supply of essential metals. It refines over 90% of tungsten, 85% of magnesium, 70% of graphite, and dominates nearly all processing of rare earth elements critical to modern defense systems, electric vehicles, missile guidance, and microelectronics. In fact, as of early August 2025, there are zero active tungsten mines on U.S. soil. These critical metals, like tungsten and others as well, aren't optional. They're foundational to our national security. The CCP not only has this dominance, but they've begun to actively weaponize it. The story gets even crazier when you understand how all of this ties into Ukraine and Russia and other surrounding regions. It's part of the global turf war between Washington and Beijing. This year, after Trump took office, Beijing rolled out new laws demanding that all domestic tungsten trade be registered and tracked. In truth, it's about strategic stockpiling and leverage. For years, China knew what Western leaders had forgotten. Whoever controls the raw materials controls the outcome. It's the ultimate leverage. But now, in Washington, President Trump is back, and he's declared economic war in return, a war for industrial sovereignty. Finally, the U.S. is fighting back. The end of the Russia-Ukraine war, it's just the first small move in this foreign policy chess game. All right, that wraps up the news portion of this video. Now let me tell you about the sponsor for today, which ties directly into everything we've been talking about, American Tungsten. You can see their ticker on the screen, and I believe they have a good chance, according to publicly available information, of being the first to bring back tungsten production to America. I have thoroughly studied this, and here's what I have to report to you. It's hard for me not to get excited about this one. The U.S. hasn't mined tungsten commercially since 2015, relying heavily on imports, 37% coming from China alone in the latest data. This is a slap in the face of the Trump administration. Tungsten is indispensable and is particularly critical for military uses. With that, there are currently zero active tungsten mines on U.S. soil. Let that sink in. If CEO Ali Haji can execute on his business plan, American Tungsten, ticker DEMRF, could be the first and only tungsten miner in America that we know of within the next 2 years. The only. That's like trophy asset status if I've ever seen one, if that were to happen. American Tungsten owns an option for 100% of the IMA past producing tungsten mine in Idaho. For a time, it was the 4th largest tungsten mine in the U.S. when one of its previous owners operated. CEO Ali Haji has come up with a business plan that aims to put it back into production in the next 12 to 18 months, well ahead of any current peer. American Tungsten is my number one and only tungsten opportunity that I'm featuring to you for that very reason. The plan is to raise 20 million USD, and then, if all goes according to the outline, to mine up to about 500 TPD, or tons per day, of ore, equal to 8% of America's tungsten needs. That is precisely the kind of business that I like. Tungsten is the second hardest element in nature. Only diamonds are harder. That's why American Tungsten's business plan to potentially put the IMA mine back into production after nearly 5 decades could be historic. From my side, the fact that there are 0 active operational tungsten mines on U.S. soil and that the IMA mine has the best shot at becoming the first one is extremely compelling. I don't know of any other mineral where that's the case, where a person can become a shareholder in a company that's aiming to be the first and only current tungsten producer on U.S. soil. Tungsten is the metal with the highest melting point in nature, which makes it simply irreplaceable in military uses. Again, without tungsten, reliably sourced, America cannot build turbines for jets, cannot manufacture key military equipment for building nuclear plants or for the AI revolution. Tungsten trades at a 14-year high right now. CEO Ali Haji has made me very happy with the caliber of people that he has assembled to achieve this historic feat of mining tungsten on U.S. soil. Geologist Austin Zinsser was brought on because of his extensive background in managing tungsten projects. James Whitaker joined the board as well, coming from a $6 billion company where he held a very secure job with a juicy paycheck. The second board member that joined is really a masterstroke, in my view. Dan Nicholas, his bio includes this key component. He was responsible for the $40 billion investment portfolio of the United States Department of Energy's Loan Program Office, including the Advanced Technology Vehicle Manufacturing Loan Program. As you could probably tell, Dan Nicholas was brought to secure government funding. It's important to have someone with those government connections, in my personal view. To me, this is the most monumental video I've published in a long time. Do your own due diligence on American Tungsten Corp. Symbol DEMRF. All right, that wraps up this episode. Like, subscribe. We'll see you next time.